Prostitution in Pomona, California. The city of Pomona has a long-running war against prostitution. Holt Avenue between Town Avenue and Indian Hill in Pomona, California is an area where prostitution is known to take place. This place is also ominously known as the Blade. One of the recent forces behind this war has been Pomona City Councilman Rubio Romero Gonzalez, who was elected in 2016 and made ending prostitution in Pomona one of his top priorities. The Pomona Police Department assembled a team of women to lure and arrest unsuspecting men to fight prostitution on the Blade. News articles have routinely reported sting operations on the Blade. 24 men arrested, 22 vehicles impounded in Pomona prostitution sting operation. 12 arrested in Pomona prostitution operation, teen girl rescued. Of the 12 suspects, there were 8 women who had attained their 18th birthday and so were deemed not worth rescuing and were arrested along with 4 male customers. 18 suspects, including 91-year-old man arrested during Pomona prostitution sting. But even though they held monthly prostitution stings where they arrested both men and women, they could never win the war against prostitution that way. Chief Michael Oliveri announced the creation of a new police team known as the Sexual Exploitation and Human Trafficking Team shortly before he announced his early retirement in December of 2019. Chief Oliveri falsely claimed that this new team would take a victim-centered approach. At that time, Councilman Gonzalez praised the new team as showing they were serious about winning the war. Gonzalez, who worked as a substitute teacher, claimed he had personal experiences that motivated his war on prostitution. He said he's known 13-year-old students who were approached while walking on Holt Avenue. One of his nieces was solicited for sex while walking in front of the Village Academy, and his own wife was solicited once when she was getting out of her car and stepping into Pandaria Cortez on Holt Avenue. Gonzalez hoped that he might actually defeat prostitution one day. But given that he seemed to be defending his failures with the prostitution war that he sponsored, it makes me wonder if he was not completely honest about his experiences. This new team was not signaling the beginnings of some more enlightened approach to prostitution in Pomona, but only a refocusing of resources. The team applied pressure to the sex workers by going after their customers, harassing them, and making life more dangerous by cutting off their access to short-time hotels. The Los Angeles County prosecutors forced the owner of the Pomona Hotel in July of 2020 to agree to a court settlement that prohibits the owner from renting room by the hour and requires him to turn over security footage to law enforcement upon request, among other measures. In September 2020, a 9-day sting operation in Pomona resulted in 30 arrests, a majority of which were men, for a variety of prostitution-related offenses. One of the days involved Claremont police, and it was reported that the sting was conducted between the hours of 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. in order to avoid confrontations with the real prostitutes working there. The purported reason for the joint raid by Claremont and Pomona police was that prostitutes who worked in Pomona were now staying at motels in Claremont. However, Claremont police participation also ensured that they would receive part of the money generated from the arrests of the 9 men captured that day. By October 19, 2020, Pomona City Council banned the rental of rooms by the hour and also prohibited the same room from being rented more than 2 times in any 24-hour period. No short-time hotels makes life dangerous. Taking away a local motel option has the more egregious effect of forcing sex workers into cars where they will be in danger of serial killers and other violence. The city of Pomona is welcoming home the likes of Gary Ridgway, who admitted he is the Green River Killer, responsible for the murders of at least 48 women. Gary said, "I picked up prostitutes as victims because they were easy to pick up without being noticed. I knew they would not be reported missing. I picked prostitutes because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted to without getting caught." The city of Pomona has failed. Gonzalez was charged on June 24, 2020 with possessing child pornography and taking inappropriate photos of girls at an elementary school where he worked as a substitute teacher in Pomona. He was sentenced to probation, required to register as a lifetime sex offender, and attend counseling following his sentencing on Wednesday, February 24, 2021. He is no longer allowed to teach children. Violation of human rights. Looking at the city of Pomona through the lens of human rights, one can easily see that they are failing to properly protect the sex workers who call Pomona home. They are in fact doubling down on failure. By setting up a team that is dishonestly called the Sexual Exploitation and Human Trafficking Team, they have abandoned any attempt to provide protection for the rights of sex workers. While there may be a lot of sex work going on in Pomona, there is rarely human trafficking or exploitation. Instead of making the services of law enforcement available for the protection of all Pomona residents, they have instead embarked on a program of discrimination, bullying, and harassment. The city of Pomona is behaving like a bully. The problem is that you cannot simply arrest or bully away some things that you don't like. Bullying does not occur between evenly matched opponents. Sex workers have absolutely no power compared to politicians in Pomona who are able to make the rules that empower the Pomona Police Department to harass sex workers and their customers, arrest them, beat them up, insult them, and take away their money. Bullies have superior social or manipulation skills. Politicians like Councilman Rubio Romero Gonzalez are master manipulators. Police are manipulating the whole narrative by pretending that they are protecting women from human trafficking. There is a yearly national publicity stunt where they claim they are fighting human trafficking, when in fact they are primarily arresting people for prostitution. Pomona Police Department created a team to bully sex workers dishonestly called the Sexual Exploitation and Human Trafficking Team. A bully will continue their behavior even when they realize it is hurting someone. Even though there is overwhelming evidence that making sex work illegal violates human rights to the point of death, politicians and police in Pomona continue to make excuses for the harm they are causing. Serial killers? Okay. But if you don't bully and harass them, they will just be prostitutes forever, was the response of a policeman who commented on my YouTube channel. But let me just say, shame on you, Pomona. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get politicians and police in Pomona to stop bullying sex workers until the larger community realizes that giving support to bullies is harming people. This is what happened with drugs, and it will eventually change our culture around sex work. But we need to have a lot of discussions, education, and demonstrations first. Our northern neighbors first showed us how this might happen. Canadian culture began to change with the realization that criminalizing sex work empowers serial killers. Canada's Supreme Court ruled that it is a violation of human rights to criminalize sex work and struck down Canadian laws in 2013. But the culture changes slowly, and Canada is still working on decriminalization. We may have the beginnings of a U.S. Supreme Court case in Pomona, California. Now that the city of Pomona has ensured that no sex worker will be missed through its bullying behavior, it will be open season for psychopaths like Gary Ridgway. It is possible that a local serial killer will grab national attention for the city of Pomona Council, Mayor, and Police Department, and this will be the basis of a Supreme Court challenge in much the same way that Canada's Supreme Court was called on to protect human rights there. We may have to wait for each state to decriminalize sex work, as was the case for marijuana. Already New York state lawmakers are considering decriminalization. California was an early adopter for marijuana law changes. Could California be early in the decriminalization of sex work too? California passed a law preventing police from using condoms as evidence of sex work a couple years ago. California has passed a new law starting in January 2021 that mandated that underage prostitutes can no longer be arrested in California. Implicit in this law is the realization that underage prostitution may be entirely voluntary, but arresting minors does nobody any good. But really, it doesn't do adults any good either. Kamala Harris, our new vice president, has gone on record saying she would back decriminalization. Can decriminalization for adults in California and the nation be far behind? A call for human rights. Amnesty International calls for the decriminalization of all aspects of adult consensual sex work due to the foreseeable barriers that criminalization creates to the realization of human rights of sex workers. Amnesty International considers that to protect the rights of sex workers, it is necessary not only to repeal laws which criminalize the sale of sex, but also to repeal those laws which make it difficult to buy sex from consenting adults or organize sex work, such as criminalizing the renting of premises for sex work. Such laws force sex workers to operate covertly in ways that compromise their safety, prohibit actions that sex workers take to maximize their safety, and serve to deny sex workers support or protection from government officials. They therefore undermine a range of sex workers' human rights, including their rights to security of person, housing, and health. There is broad support for better treatment of sex workers. Other groups which support or are calling for the decriminalization of sex work include the World Health Organization, the Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, the International Labor Organization, the Global Alliance Against Trafficking in Women, the Global Network of Sex Work Projects, the Global Commission on HIV and the Law, Human Rights Watch, the Open Society Foundations, and Anti-Slavery International. Amnesty International and others continue to call for governments to repeal existing laws and refrain from introducing new laws that criminalize or penalize directly or indirectly the practice of the consensual exchange of sexual services between adults for money.